Welcome back to the course on virtual meetings. In this session we will focus on where to hold the meeting. For that we will consider both online and offline platforms, and in the end I will give you some tips and tricks to remember. Let's start with the online tools available. On the internet there's a vast amount of opportunities to use for virtual online meetings. However, in this tutorial we will focus on only 4 of them. The first tool that you can use is Google Hangout. Google Hangout is quite well known and has a high social character because multiple people can share their videos and you can add little add-ons like hats or mustaches. That makes the meeting a lot of fun and gives it a lot of social character, which is especially good for bonding. This means that, for example, in the beginning of your team meeting experiences, this will be very helpful to create some sort of team atmosphere. However, Google Hangout also has some downsides. First of all, everyone involved needs to have a private Gmail account, because the accounts of ISAC.de or ISAC.net do not work with Google Hangout. That means that you will have to collect all the private email addresses of everyone involved in the meeting. Another point is that people sometimes have reported technical issues with Google Hangout. That means that they were either not able to join the meeting, not able to talk during the meeting, or couldn't hear anybody. This is especially problematic if you have an important and urgent meeting scheduled and you have to spend a lot of time figuring out technical issues, and then after all, if you were not able to solve them, you need to switch over to another platform. This can be very confusing for everyone involved in a meeting. So if you want to use Google Hangout, make sure that all the participants have prior experience with Google Hangout and they are sure their accounts work. If all of those issues are solved, then Google Hangout can be a really fun and advisable platform for meetings. Another solution is TeamSpeak. TeamSpeak is a very professional tool that gives you excellent quality for the meeting. You will need to be connected to the internet, but if you are, then you have access to the push-to-talk function, which is great in eliminating background noises and avoids that everyone is speaking at the same time, because you need to push a button on your keyboard first in order to be able to speak. That means everyone who wants to speak is queued after each other and you have an automatic speaking order, which avoids that people talk at the same time and you cannot understand anything. The problem with TeamSpeak is that first of all you need to download the program and install it on your computer, which makes you less flexible because you cannot participate in the meeting from any device, but you have to have a device that has TeamSpeak installed. The second point is that you need to pay a small fee in order to be able to use TeamSpeak. Not everyone participating in the meeting needs to pay this fee, but you only need to have one paid account and then can invite other people to join your meeting. However, you should ask whether in your region there's already a TeamSpeak account available, because some regions in ISAC Germany already have a TeamSpeak account that is being paid for, and if that's the case, TeamSpeak is a great opportunity to have professional and easy virtual meetings. So make sure to ask your predecessors about this. However, if there is no account available yet, you really need to consider whether it is worth making the investment. The third option for online tools is Adobe Connect. You might already know Adobe Connect from virtual education sessions, but it can also be used for virtual meetings. The upside is still that you can also share content, which makes it easier to focus the attention of everyone involved. You can use it for meetings because it is very easy to grant everyone speaking rights in the meeting, and then you can interact in many different ways. Adobe Connect gives you the opportunity not only to have the usual layout that we know from virtual education sessions, but you can actually switch around and, for example, use the discussion layout that gives you a bigger chat so that it's easier to actually read what is written in the chat. And it also provides several fields that you can be used for notes. So, for example, you could have a field for brainstorming notes, a field for to-dos that result from the meeting, and also others for random chats, etc. This makes it very easy for participants to actually involve themselves in a meeting in different ways, via talking, via writing notes, or via sharing content. Another feature that Adobe Connect offers is to use instant polls in order to immediately have a vote from all the participants on some certain questions, which can make meetings much more efficient. The downside on Adobe Connect is that for this also you need to have an account. There are NSB accounts for ISAC in Germany available, but you will need to ask your MCVP whether you can actually use it for a meeting. This means that Adobe Connect can probably not be your standard online meeting tool, but you could use it if you have to launch major projects or if you want to brainstorm with everyone on bigger issues. Then Adobe Connect with its many sharing functions and involvement functions can be a perfect tool for you. The last option I want to give you is Skype. You probably already know Skype from the private area of your life. Skype is a good tool in the ways that everyone already has it. It is free, and you can also download an app on your phone, which means that you can use it basically everywhere you are, be it at home or on the go. The problem with Skype is that usually at least one person has really bad quality, a lot of background noises, and is really hard to understand on Skype. This means that Skype would usually not be advisable for virtual meetings. However, if your regular online meeting tool or offline meeting tool fails to work, usually people can switch over to Skype easily because everyone usually has an account. That means Skype can always be your backup version for virtual meetings. Now let's have a look on some certain offline tools and hybrids between online and offline. The most common offline tool that you can use are telephone conferences. Telephone conferences means that everyone can join one telephone room via their mobile phones or via their landline phones, and you will usually only pay the landline charge. That means if you have a landline flat rate on your phone, you will not have any costs in participating in the meeting, and the positive thing about telephone conferences is that you usually have a very good quality of the telephone conference. Everyone can be understood clearly, and there are usually no major technical issues with telephone conferences. The negative thing is that you cannot really use telephone conferences if not everyone involved has a flat rate for landline phones, because then it will be very costly for people to participate in the meeting, and it's just not worth having those really huge telephone bills. However, the very good sound quality and flexibility and no need to be connected to the internet usually speak in favor of telephone conferences. If you want to set up your own telephone conference room, you can either use mytelco.de or konferenzen.eu. The last one also enables you to join the meeting from other countries than just Germany, which can be beneficial if you have people joining from other countries because of their semester abroad, for example. The downside of telephone conferences, however, is that you cannot share files, so people cannot focus visually on something during the meeting and have to listen to the phone for a very long time and be very concentrated. So especially if you have long meetings that go longer than 1 hour, it can be very frustrating and difficult to have the meeting via telephone conference, and you need to consider whether then it's really a suitable medium for you. The last tool that I want to introduce to you is anymeeting.com. Anymeeting.com is actually a hybrid between online and offline tools and is based on online versions. So this is an online platform that looks a little bit similar to Adobe Connect. It enables you to share content like files, and it also enables you to join in via giving speaking rights to your participants. There is also a chat function that you can use, and you can make notes during the meeting. However, the great thing about anymeeting.com is that you can also join in a meeting via a landline phone. So that means that your participants can be very flexible whether they want to join online or offline, and can join in no matter where they are, because you usually either have at least an internet connection or a phone reception. That makes anymeeting.com very flexible. You can get a free account online that is sponsored via advertisements and look at the functions that it offers you. If you find it suitable, then make sure to also introduce the medium to your participants, because it is not yet very well known in ISAC Germany. Lastly, let's look at some things to consider. It is very important that when you choose your meeting platform, you agree upon it with all the future participants before the first meeting. The platform has to be fixed before you start meeting, because otherwise people will be very confused and very unsure about where they should actually go. Also, make sure that you consider any future participants in your meetings. This means, for example, if you start out with only 3 or 4 participants, for example, only the current generation of your team, but you know that the elect generation or the next generation will join in the meetings at any future time, then also consider their meeting needs and see whether you want to go for an online or an offline medium. The next point is that you should always stay with one platform, not to confuse anyone. That means no switching between Skype and Google Hangout and telephone conferences in between meetings or from one meeting to another. However, you should make sure that you stay flexible to adapt if circumstances change. That means, for example, if you started out in a telephone conference room, but then one of the participants loses their landline flat rate, then you should consider changing to an online medium, because otherwise it will be very disadvantageous for that person to still join the meetings. Lastly, only enable features that you will actually use and don't over-engineer your platform. This especially applies to platforms like Adobe Connect or AnyMeeting.com, where there are lots of features offered to you for sharing content and involving your participants. Make sure to only use the minimal features that you really need, because otherwise people will spend way more time figuring out how the platform works and finding that one button that they actually want to use amongst the 10 or 20 buttons offered, than actually focusing on the meeting and the content that you are discussing. With those tips and tricks, it should be very easy for you to find the perfect platform for your meetings. I hope it works out very well for you, and I wish you all the best for your meetings. Thank you for joining this lesson, and in the next lesson you will find out about other tools that simplify your virtual work.